Welcome into the Aces Loaded podcast, episode number 5. We're here with Bryce Jarvis. Bryce, new addition here to AAA Reno. How are you liking it so far? And welcome to the podcast. By the way, you're the third pitching guest.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me. No, Reno's been great so far. Third week here, and I feel like I'm getting settled in pretty well.
You're from Nashville, Tennessee, is that right?
Correct.
Now, you were born in Lexington, right?
Yeah.
So Nashville, what was that like growing up? Were you actually like right in the main part of the city?
About like 10 or 15 minutes south. We moved there when I was really young. My dad was still playing ball and needed a bigger airport for direct flights out to the West Coast, wherever he was playing. And Nashville was close enough to the grandparents and big enough to have a good airport. So,
high school-wise, what other sports did you play? Was it only baseball? And when did you kind of lock into it's only going to be baseball from now on?
Yeah, so when I got to high school was when I started only playing baseball, but in middle school and growing up I played basketball and soccer and no football, but basketball and soccer were two main ones.
You alluded to it, your dad played in the show, he played with Cincinnati, San Diego, a bunch of other teams. And how did that help you though to be in positions like this, working your way through the minor leagues?
Yeah, I mean, it just kind of gives you a familiarity with the team, scenario, situations, locker room. I feel like it's a little bit different than kind of like your everyday life, like being in a team scenario and getting to see my dad interact with his teammates and his teammates interact with me growing up. I think just makes me that much more comfortable in a locker room, in a dugout, on a baseball field.
He went to Wake Forest, you went to Duke. Is there any rivalry there at all?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say so much Duke and Wake, but, growing up in Lexington, I think there's a pretty big rivalry with UK and Duke. So, when I told my grandparents I was going to Duke, they made sure it was clear that they were only Duke baseball fans, not Duke basketball, not Duke football, just baseball.
I was going to say, what went into that decision? Because you were born in Lexington, where the University of Kentucky is. So, yeah, what went into that call to go to Duke?
I knew I wanted to do engineering in college, and obviously, Duke's got a really good engineering school. It was far enough from Nashville that I was going to be somewhere new and have some new experiences, but close enough to make getting home for the holidays easy. And honestly, just like taking my first visit there and getting to know Coach Pollard, the head coach there, and hearing the things that people were saying about the program, I think it was right on the edge of kind of bursting through onto the college baseball scene. And I think all of that came to fruition my first 3 years there. And we kind of had a couple good years, made it to the regionals, super regionals, and really happy with that decision.
You're leading me into it here. Perfect game. We got to ask about that. That was obviously probably one of your more special moments in your Duke career, I got to assume. Just tell me about that experience and just the emotions going through that from the third to the sixth to the final out.
Yeah, for sure. I think one of the things that a lot of people don't know about that game is, it was right on the edge of getting banged for weather. There was icicles hanging from the second level of the stadium, and they didn't know whether it was going to be a hazard for the people in the stands. And
because icicles are dangerous,
yes.
And people don't know how dangerous icicles are.
For sure, especially when they're falling from tens of feet up. But our head coach had a good feeling about that game and really pushed the grounds crew to get the field ready for the game. And so obviously I'm just treating it like any other start. I think it was like the second week of the season, so still trying to get the season rolling a little bit. And then didn't really treat it any differently. And I remember going into the sixth or seventh inning, I think we had some defensive replacements, which was a little odd. I looked up and there was a different catcher out there, and
whoa, he switched catchers midway through.
Yeah, I know. But I was trying not to let that affect me, and luckily it was just kept rolling into the ninth and got that last out on a punch out. And so did your teammates talk to you throughout? I know that's a big superstition. Did they slowly stop talking to you in the dugout? No. So when I pitch, I usually don't talk to people anyway, but I think, right around that fifth or sixth inning, guys started to realize what was going on, and they steered completely clear of me in the dugout, gave me my space, and let me do my thing.
That's awesome. That's really cool. All right, first round pick in 2020, 18th overall. It was the 2020 draft, which was weird. Coming into that draft, what were your thoughts?
I honestly didn't know I was going to go in the first round. With the shortened college season, it's hard to know. Teams are relying on a really small sample size of stats, but I had a really, really big summer going into my junior year, put on some weight, gained some velo on the mound, really sharpened everything up, and luckily I had those 3 or 4 weeks to kind of show that new and improved version of myself on the field, and had the perfect game, which helped a lot. And then after that, it was kind of, a lot was in limbo. Guys didn't know if the draft was going to happen, how many rounds it was going to be. I actually ended up down in Florida at Cressy Sports Performance with some of my other Duke teammates who were going into the draft, and we were able to be surrounded by a lot of current professional baseball players and college guys looking to get drafted. And as it got closer and we learned it was going to be 5 rounds, I had a good feeling I was going to be in those 5 rounds, but what team and where it was going to be, I really had no clue.
COVID was weird for a lot of people, but those couple months training down in Florida, that just must have been a whole different thing. I mean, had you ever been to Florida before that?
Yeah, I've been to Florida, but never in a situation like this. I mean, we probably had 50 to 100 major league guys down there training, and everything kind of shut down, and so you have that many guys concentrated in one area. Like, there's a lot of good things going on, a lot of people to learn from, just like sitting back, being quiet, and taking it all in. And so I think that was a really good experience and a really good kickstart to my pro career.
I read an article about you making adjustments about, I think it was your fastball delivery, right before this season in spring training. What adjustments did you make, and how did they help you to start this season?
Yeah, so coming off of last year, I don't think it's any secret that things didn't really go the way that I wanted them to, or the D-backs wanted them to go, and so it kind of took a lot of effort on a lot of people's parts to really dive in and address why that was. And I think it came down to a little bit of fastball extension, a little bit of usage, and so I was fortunate enough to come in early this spring and get to work with Strami and Barry Enright before spring training even got started, and used the new pitching lab in Scottsdale and really kind of tweak some mechanical things to help the fastball play up, and maybe drop the usage a little bit to really only use it in spots where I know it's going to be effective. And I think through the first couple weeks of this season, it's been really effective, and I'm hoping it continues on.
Yeah, you've been super effective to start this year. I want to go back to your Duke days. So you played with some pretty big-time guys there. Matt Mervis, one of those guys who just made his debut for the Cubs. Sure. You played with him, right?
Yeah, Merv's a really good buddy of mine. Shot him a text when he debuted, and just let him know I'm rooting for him, and hoping to see him up there soon. Hopefully we'll have a couple more guys up here in the years to come.
Like you mentioned it too, Duke, a program that's growing in the ACC, a tough ACC as well. I went to Virginia Tech, so it is really a gauntlet, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of really solid teams, and I think coming up in the leagues that the D-backs have affiliates in, you run into a lot of ACC guys, a lot of guys I've played against, and even guys with the D-backs, guys that I played against, and getting to see them, and coming from being across the field from them on a different team to being their teammates has been a cool experience.
We were talking on the bus the other day, but this is just for our more casual fans who think pitchers still ice after games.
Okay.
We were talking, pitchers do not ice anymore after
really?
games.
No, I mean, there's a whole lot of new modalities out there for recovery, and some guys are still married to what they've known, some of the older guys, but honestly, like, I grew up icing. My dad played. That's what he did, so that's what I did growing up. And then as the years have gone on, there's just so many different ways to recover, whether it's manual therapy or contrast, which is a little bit ice adjacent. You got Mark Pros and Normatex, but there's all this stuff that guys can use, and it's kind of, pick whatever makes you feel good and go with that.
So a lot of what you said to me doesn't really make any sense. You have an engineering background. Are you really into kind of the different ways you can take care of your body, and with all the new technology coming out, does that interest you, and it's something you gravitate towards to find different ways to improve in that way?
For sure, yeah. I think that's part of the package of a baseball player that I am. I enjoy the tinkering and the bullpens on the TrackMan units, and figuring out, tilting a spin axis one way or another to make an off-speed pitch better, or play a certain way. I think that really plays into some of the stuff I studied in college, and I enjoy that just as much as being out on the mound during a game and punching a guy out.
I'm interested too. Are those certain adjustments you can make, like you can apply that to an outing, and is that something you ever think about during an outing, or is it just go attack the hitter, think about sequencing, and get outs?
Maybe a little bit. I mean, you kind of take each outing week to week, and then whatever didn't go right, or whatever you want to maybe tweak going into the next one, you work on in your midweek bullpen, and you can take some of those cues that you find week to week into your outings. But for the most part, it's just big picture. Stick to, what you do well and what works, filling up the zone, getting ahead, making the pitches in the situations that you need to. So it's a little bit of both.
What's your favorite baseball movie? Check that. Favorite movie?
Favorite movie? That's tough. Probably Hot Rod.
Oh, that's a classic.
Classic, yeah. I could probably quote that movie all the way through.
So you're a comedy movie guy?
Yeah, I mean, my high school best friend and I used to watch that movie almost once a week, and so it's just something I have good memories tied to.
Yeah, that's a classic. I did read, actually. Is it true you want to be an astronaut?
I would say if I wasn't playing baseball, then yeah. I think that would be really cool. Just getting to apply some of the engineering background, and I think aerospace, and whether it's on Earth or away from Earth, I think that's really cool, and definitely one of the next big areas that we're going to see entered in the next 10 to 15 years.
All right, that's Bryce Jarvis for episode 5 of the Aces Loaded podcast. Thanks for coming on, man.
Thanks for having me.